Great, Tim! So a couple people have asked me to try making tutorials, and why the heck not? So here's my process for cell shading. Disclaimer, this is just how I do it, and I don't even have a super strict process. It changes every time I draw because I'm indecisive and experiment a lot. So I recommend you do the same. Screw around and see what sticks. And to clarify, I'm covering the way I color and polish drawings. I'm not covering light placement, bounce light, how rim light works, color theory, and all that good stuff. Plenty of other videos teaching all those things. I link some below. Today I'm just covering like the blending modes and stuff that I use. Also, this strictly applies to digital art because layers and whatnot. I'm using Procreate, but this works in any program as long as you have layers and blending modes. So I'm gonna show you how I shade a drawing with the average light scenario and then one with glowy effects. So step 1 is flats. There's not much to say about flats, I just plop colors down. Sometimes I'll try to organize them by isolating each color, but Procreate limits the amount of layers you can make, so if the drawing has a bunch of different colors, like this, I just merge a bunch of areas of color that are close to each other. If the drawing only has a few different colors in it, then I'll separate them all. Step 2, gradients and details. I add gradients for color variation. I use the spray paint brush for this because I like the texture. I add a lighter or darker, or sometimes both versions of the color to the top and the bottom. For skin, I pick a slightly warmer and darker color and add it to the inside of the ears, the cheeks, in the nose, and sometimes around the knees, elbows, and knuckles. And if I'm not feeling lazy, I'll add little details like potion stains here and dirt on someone's pants, stuff like that. Step 3, actually shading. Okay, so this is the part where I screw around and experiment the most. This is just the gist. Usually, at first, I do a rough pass with blending modes. I use either darken or multiply or some other blending mode at around 50%, maybe more or maybe less, and block in the shadows. I'll use multiple different colors for shadows. Typically, though, I use a dark purple or a dark pink to shade. Never shade with black unless your drawing is meant to be monochrome or if you want the drawing to be really desaturated. And also, black doesn't work for multiply anyways. It'll just look like nothing's there. When the blending mode pass is done, I'll make a new layer on top of each of the blending mode layers and add a little more shadow and highlights with my hand. I'm picking the colors myself at this point because sometimes blending modes don't go dark or saturated enough, so I add that in myself. And then step 4, highlights. I usually highlight eyes with bright saturated hues. I don't like using white for highlights. The hues are just more fun for me. And for the hair, I just select the base color, draw it in, set the layer to add, screw with the opacity, and bam, done. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the average lighting scenario. Now for a scenario with glowy effects. Here we have our flats and the gradients done. Now first, I just drop a multiply layer on top of everything that make it all darker. It's a different multiply layer for each color, by the way. In some lighting scenarios, you'll have an object glowing in a well-lit room. In this case, it's a dark room, but if your scenario is a well-lit room, then just don't do the multiply step. And for all the other steps after this one, just lower the opacity and intensity. Then I take the glowing object, duplicate it, Gaussian blur it a bit, set it to add, duplicate the add layer again, screw with the opacities, and now you have a glowing thing. Then I select the colors from the glowing object, clip it onto the surrounding thing, set the layer to add again, and add shading. I'd like to note that while I did directly pick the firelight color out of the fireball, I didn't directly pick the eyelight color from Danny's eyes. I shifted the hue to something more cyan because the bright lime green looked kind of gross and I wasn't really a fan of it. If a color doesn't really look right in a blending mode, I just shift the hue and keep screwing with it, force it to comply. When the first lighting pass is done, I'll make another layer, set it to normal, handpick some rim lights, and then add it to the edge of the character. I'll also add some dark shadows. Since Randy and Danny's suits are black, it isn't super noticeable, but I do it anyways because it's fun. Quick tip, less is more. On the first highlight pass, I went overboard with the lighting on Randy's suit, so I went back and erased some bits. I did the same for Danny, and that's it. Pretty much it. Slap a simple background in there, and we're done. Here are the two final pieces. I know that this one has my OCs, a proper BG, and more dynamic poses, but why do I like this one more? Brains are funky like that. Anyways, that's all. Hope this video was somewhat helpful at all. If there's anything else you want me to try teaching, let me know. Eat mangoes, be a catastrophe, and I will go pass out now.